On today's Starting Nine, Jake and Carl sit down with the voice of baseball and the Los Angeles Dodgers, Joe Davis, about taking over for Vin Scully and his personal rise to the World Series booth. Before and after that, we get into some major news. There's a huge contract, or is it big enough? Some questionable comments, defensive comments, some would say. We're going to talk a little bit about the Yankees, a great pitching matchup, and so much more. It's a great day to have a wonderful Starting Nine. Let's get into it. Action! Welcome back to Starting Nine. You look good, tie-dye. Carl here in Chicago.
Yeah.
Jake, you look...
Little Amiri shirt. Amiri shirt. I've had this for, like 6 or 7 years. And if you could see the house, so we're in the house now. We've been in for 3 days completely. And there's just, there's boxes stacked to the ceiling in the garage, clothes and baseball memorabilia and shoes. So we got to slowly but surely go through all that. I'm operating on like 3 outfits, which is standard for me. You know, you see me in shorts and a tank top and cut off sleeves. So very minimalist right now. And it's kind of nice to not have to think about what to wear. Just grab a t-shirt, shorts, and move about your day. So yeah, everything's good. The kids started school today. Very exciting. I didn't fall asleep until about 2:30. I was up late playing poker, and I'm like, whatever. I'm gonna try and grind this out. I was down a little bit of money. I'm trying to win it back, and I'm looking at the clock. I know I got to get up at 6 with the kids, but it is what it is. So the kids are off to school. Cooper and Palmer were up at. They're like, hey, can we set our alarm for 5:30? I'm like, well, you can do whatever you want. Just don't wake me up till 6. So they're up. They're very excited. Cooper had his fresh Jordans ready, his outfit. Palmer looked beautiful. Made him breakfast, a good breakfast for the first day of school. Got a workout in with a buddy this morning. Had a sauna session, but man, I am very tired. So I'm gonna pick up the energy. I'm gonna use the belly breathing like Joe Davis does. And I know you said you were gonna work on it a little bit, but not just to talk from the throat.
Yeah.
Expand the abdomen. Project that voice and put on a good show for our listeners today. So how you doing today?
Well, as we talked, this is going to be a running theme throughout today's show, my voice inflections, and it is because when we get to this Joe Davis interview, it is an important thing for me to understand is when does that voice go on and off, and is it real, and how does that work? And his personal story of how he got to where he's at is one of my favorite that I've experienced in sports firsthand.
And he, at a young age, he's only 34 years old, and kind of diving into, the bio on Joe Davis and seeing where he started from in 2009, and he had to grind. Absolutely, there's no doubt about it. But the grind was fairly quick, and he had a couple breaks and. Who was it? It was somebody from ESPN radio listening into the Montgomery Biscuits and ended up buying a hat and became a fan. And
wild story.
So our listeners will get to hear that when we play that interview. But truly unique. And with the voice, I would like to hear how he talks to his wife on the phone. Like, do you think he sounds a lot different? He kind of shuts it off, or he still has that very stoic, but. He's been doing it for so long now. Maybe it's just a part of him. It's got to be. I don't know if you can shut up. Do you think Joe Buck shuts it off?
No. I think Joe Buck. Man, now I'm really in my head, and I don't even want to explain what I'm thinking about. Like Joe Buck as a kid at the dinner table. I'm sure his dad would be like, "Use the voice." Pass me the salt. He'd be like, "No, I want the voice, son."
I wonder when the transition happened for them. Like, I guess it was sometime around puberty when they went from like that high pitched kid voice to the low, very stoic voice, or maybe it was later in life. But you think their parents were like, "Holy shit! Like this voice, there's something to it. Like we need to find a way to get you on radio or on TV."
I think it's like the dads from Varsity Blues sitting around drinking beer in the parking lot, like watching the football, except it's the complete opposite. Where like Joe, he's sitting there and his dad's just like, "You got a pussy voice, kid. You got a deep. I need a deeper voice. Like give me more deep reps." I don't want to grow
Fire
up in
that
house.
fucking pigskin.
Yeah.
Toss me one.
Give me that home run call one more time.
Mm-hmm.
What about Tom? We're here. Tom Brenneman, the clip will not go away. There's a drive deep in the left, Castellano, and that's a tough scene. That might be one of the most heinous acts by the baseball gods in my lifetime.
Yeah. Wrong place, wrong time, I guess.
Yep.
Didn't go well.
Okay, yeah, we got some great baseball news, but before we get to that, I'm in big trouble. You asked me how I'm doing. I run into personal problems because I can anticipate them. I see it happening, and then I'm already in the middle of that problem. So here's a perfect example. One of my closest friends is getting married. Like, one of two guys I'd say is my best. Like, I grew up with a guy who's my best friend, and then this is like my best friend from college and adult life. He's getting married the same day Game 7 of the World Series is being played, and I'm allegedly giving a speech.
Well, hopefully there is no Game 7.
Thank you.
You know, that's it. And there's a pretty good chance of that happening.
I think it's like a 70% chance that
it doesn't happen.
That it does not happen.
Yeah, that sounds.
But my head has just been swimming right now because I don't want to tell him. He doesn't give a fuck. The playoff schedule came out. Hey, just so you know.
No.
I don't want to tell anybody at Barstool because I don't even need to deal. I don't want to be like. So I guess I did just tell people at Barstool. But push comes to shove. I'm out on record. I'm going to the wedding. I'm giving the speech. I don't give a shit. I'm sorry. Yeah. There's no baseball podcast without this guy. Yeah. There's none of this without this guy. So
yeah, you got to be there. We'll just hope for 6 games because you want it to go 6, just not 7.
Now, speaking of which, how about this? He's got a bachelor party coming up in Miami.
Okay.
Thursday it's the end of September. Thursday to Sunday. And one of the boys chartered a private jet, picking up the check on it. Thank you very much, JR.
Man, look at you. You have rich friends. Well done.
I might have the richest
Good
friends.
friend picker.
I'm the luckiest guy with rich friends.
You are a great friend picker.
How about this?
Do you abuse it? Do you take advantage? Do you take advantage of your buddies?
Dude, do you know how often these guys will be like, hey, can you send me a 20-second video wishing my client fucking happy birthday or something? You got it, pal.
Really?
Hey, Joey. Yeah,
really?
Whatever.
Oh, wow.
What?
I didn't know that your friends thought you were famous or whatever.
No, they don't. They actually think I'm a douchebag and a loser. However, they
your
are
friends'
aware
friends
that
like you.
In some commercial purposes that, whatever, dude.
You're good at putting clips together like that. Like you can wing something and make it interesting. So I could see why people would want those from you. Makes sense. Yeah. That's a compliment.
And you know what? That might be like the second or third on record with you, and I appreciate that very much. And I'm not saying that as you put. No, you don't. It's not that you don't put me down. It's just you don't sharpen or you don't. You're not giving out a compliment unless you mean it.
Yeah, that's right. I want it to be genuine. You know what I have? I have something I wanted to show you. This was something that I got a few days ago. You'll recognize this stud.
For our YouTube.
Edgar Martinez, signed 1 of 1. Pretty sweet card, huh? Pretty sweet card. So Cooper talked me into buying. Yeah, check it out. Cooper talked me into buying these boxes. They're called Topps Archive Signature Series. And what they do is this was a card from 1999, Topps. I guess it was unreleased, and then they packaged them with all these other cards from different years, and then sell them. So it's a 1 of 1, but it's kind of a fake 1 of 1. I don't know. It's just a way for Topps to make some more money. This was the best card we pulled. I bought like 10 boxes of them, and we got a bunch of garbage. I mean, I got a Jose Canseco signed. I got a Don Mattingly, which is kind of cool. But the 1 of 1, anything 1 of 1 is good. So,
yeah, but to your point, they're just stamping 1 of 1 on stuff now.
That's what they do. But I'd rather have a 1 of 1 than a 7 of 95, which most of the cards are. Just high numbered, kind of garbage.
Custom Chrysler 300 from 2006.
custom Chrysler.
What is it? What was the Chrysler they made?
The Chrysler
like the Rolls
300.
Royce?
Yeah, I mean it's the Cat Williams thing.
Tough.
Like it looks like a Phantom until a Phantom pulls up.
Yes,
Man,
man.
that's
Now
just
Cat Williams.
It's so true. Man, he I don't know if you've seen his recent stand up, and it wasn't bad, but there's just like the Pimp Chronicles. You just can't top that, or at least he didn't. He tried to. We love Cat Williams. I think he's phenomenal.
The first time I had consumed an edible of sorts or whatever, I had seen the Pimp Chronicles. I'm like 19 years old. I was laughing. I thought I had to go to the emergency room. I was laughing so hard.
I mean, really good. Was Pimp Chronicles, or maybe the second one when he had the green like velvet suit?
Whichever one where he's like, turn the music on. If you haven't seen this, by the way, this is great podcasting. So if you haven't seen it, stay tuned. Joe Davis coming up. But I will answer. We're talking Cat Williams stand-up right now, and that ain't going anywhere. When he's like, turn the music off, sir. Turn the music back on. When he's doing his entrance, I said, turn the goddamn music off. Play the music.
No, he's sweating. He's probably on coke.
Would you ever do stand-up?
Actually, yes. I've thought a lot about it. I think it would be fun too. Going to a lot of stand-ups, having a tremendous amount of respect for, comics that get up there and new comics and veteran comics and how they process their material and work through it. I love hearing about how like Chappelle will just pop into like a club and just do 3 or 4 hours of working through his material. And can you imagine just being at, a comedy club somewhere, you paid $10-15 for a ticket and there's 50 people in there, and all of a sudden Chappelle walks in and you get to see him do stand up for 4 hours. Like that's what I love about it. And comics are all different. I know Rogan does his one way, and I like Theo Von. You know Theo Von? I think Theo's fucking hilarious. Like half the time, or probably 90% of the time, he's making everything up. Like all his stories seem extremely outlandish. Like there's no way these stories can be true. One of my favorite Theo stories is when he's talking about playing hide and seek as a kid, and like everybody took mushrooms before they played hide and seek, and it was his turn to seek, and one kid like disappeared and he never saw him again. Like, I mean, just funny shit. He's a great storyteller.
Yeah. We should have him on the show.
I would love that. He's got a great podcast too.
I think he's tied in with some Barstool folks. We should definitely have him on the show.
And I know he's considering moving to Austin. I hope he does.
Like in your head, is he working out with you?
He's welcome to. I mean, I know that there's a pretty nice network of comics that are moving here. Ron White moved here. I know Tim Dillon moved here. Joe Rogan's here. There's a handful of others, but yeah, people are coming here.
I think Tim Dillon's one of the funniest guys in the universe.
Oh, he's so funny, man, and he's very smart too. He's not just a funny guy. He's pretty smart, and he's pretty dialed into what's going on in the world, current events and politics. So it's a fun combination of real world like information and comedy, and he does a really good job of that.
Speaking of comics and shows in general, you guys might want to go see some baseball show, but listen, you might want to go see some stand-up comedy, maybe a concert. That's why I want to talk about our good friends at Game Time, the exclusive ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. It's a ticketing app that makes it easier than ever to score last-minute deals on tickets to sports, concerts, and shows. And they guarantee the lowest price. Cracking the code on how to score deals on last-minute tickets. Biggest last-minute price drops can be found on the seats you never thought you could buy. Cubs down as low as $12, probably getting lower. Red Sox, Mets, Yankees, Braves, but like I said, stand-up comedy as well. Best part, you get $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app, go to the account tab to create a login, and redeem code STARTING9 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Game Time, the exclusive ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. Put it on your phone. Speaking of saving money, what if I told you that Ozzie Albies, Ronald Acuna, I'm bad with the N's and the teal days. Let me try it again. Ozzie Albies, Ronald Acuna, Austin Riley, and Michael Harris, those combined contracts are less than what the Angels will pay Mike Trout.
Yeah, well, the Braves nailed it. You know, they got Albies for a very reasonable contract for a number of years, and then with Harris, and I've been talking to guys the last few days, and they're telling me that this is very bold, but these are players saying that they believe that he will be better than Ronald Acuna. They say he's the best defensive center fielder in the National League, and he has the potential to be better than Acuna. If that's the case, and look, he's 21 years old, but you know, I was looking at his numbers. I haven't seen him play a ton, but these are active players saying he's the best defensive center fielder that they've seen this year. And obviously his offensive ability could potentially be that of Acuna or better. I mean, and to get him for 8 years and around $72 million. Oh man, it's like, I don't know who his agent is, but
yeah, that was funny last night when we were talking about it.
Yeah, it's an amazing deal for the team. I don't know if his agent just really needs some money, but yeah, I would have liked to see a little bit more negotiation, because if this kid is that good, that could be one of the worst deals of all time.
Now, he does have the opportunity to hit free agency again because he is only 21 years old.
Well, he's not. Not again. He'll.
No,
hit free
I know.
agency.
I shouldn't say again, but he will be in line, or he could
How old?
potentially be in line
At
29 or 30.
Yeah, 29 though. God.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, fuck that.
But it's guaranteed money. He's 21 years old. It's hard to say no to. It's hard to say no to 70+ million, and I know that there are guys who have walked away from offers similar to this, maybe even a little more, some a little less, that ended up not maintaining that level of performance, struggling, and that offer goes away, and maybe you never see it again. So that's something that, you know, you absolutely don't want to have happen. You know, sometimes you got to bet on yourself. If this kid is that good, man, I mean, if you perform, that number only goes up. So, but it's done now. He's financially secure. The Braves are in a position to have, just a really, really good team for a long time. So, I give both sides credit. Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit of a contract enthusiast here, arbitration guy. So he wouldn't he wouldn't qualify for Super 2 status based on my understanding. And also I want to, before any of this, I think it was like July 11th or 12th, Dansby Swanson came on the show. We asked him, we're like, what happened for you guys to like take off? And he didn't hesitate. He's like, we called Michael Harris up.
That's a good point.
Made him the everyday center fielder.
Yep, he did say that.
It's like 6 weeks later, and now Michael Harris signs this massive contract where I think 6 weeks ago, a lot of people listening to the show were like, wait a second. Michael Harris. That guy. And now it's like, no, he's getting paid. So it's 9 years and 72. Am I correct?
I think it was 8 years.
8 years.
8 years, 72. So that's $9 million a year. Okay, we'll just say AAV $9 million. That's what it is.
And for the next 3 years, I mean, he'd basically be making $1.5 million 3 combined seasons. So
yeah. I have that at 2 conservatively. So we're saying that the Braves are going to pay him $25 million more over the next 3 years. Then the next 3 years, they're going to pay him $27 million, and in those arbitration years, I'm looking at this and looking at comps. They'd pay him $27 million. If they got him in arbitration, they're probably paying him between $40 and $45 million for those 3 years.
Yeah.
And then after that, those 2 other years where he'd be a free agent, if he's as good as they think he is, those are $25 million years where the Braves are going to be paying him. Yeah,
just judging by the type of player he is, this is just a really phenomenal deal for the team. And look, it's a very small sample size, but everybody's sold on this kid. So it seems like a win-win. And I know that he's happy. I'd like to talk to him and ask him how he's feeling, because, I mean, when you're projected to make, and let's be honest, let's face it, when you're making minimum, you're not taking home that much money. And I know people think, oh, all these guys are millionaires and they're making $500,000-$600,000 a year. You're taking home half of that maximum. And then traveling and all these hotels, dinners, like it's expensive. Playing in the big leagues,
the lifestyle is
very expensive. And that's not saying you're going out and buying all these big cars and flashy clothes. Even if you're not doing that, even if you're conservative, renting a place during the season is very expensive. Places in spring training are expensive. You have your family at home. You're basically paying for two households. So at the end of the day, like you might put $100,000 in the bank. So it's,
and which is way less than I think people would anticipate.
It is way less.
You're high-paid professional athlete.
And people know that everyone pays taxes, but they fail to remember that when they look at the salary. Like, oh, he's making $500,000-$600,000. Technically, sure, cut it in half, or take 40% of that, and then cut that 40% in half. That's probably what he's able to save.
Yeah. Now, good for the Braves, because I think baseball needs more of this culture building. They have a culture. If you tell me what the Braves are, it's like, yeah, in some sense, this is kind of how people had viewed the Cubs. You have like, they're going to be a wagon for like 10 years. And now there's questions if they're going to keep Dansby Swanson. He might be playing himself out of their payroll because he's been so good this year. Where they thought maybe going into this, like, Dansby's a leader, we want to build around him, and we could probably get him for like, $15 to $17 million a year long term. But the way Dansby Swanson's played this year, there's definitely teams out there that need somebody in the clubhouse. I think he could get a big deal. So interesting to see the Braves make this move on Michael Harris, where they probably would have, I don't know how, because you say, like, yeah, he's only played in 70 games. He's 21 years old. His strikeout rate is very high. You are taking a bet on a guy to, like,
that'll change,
get better and some risk. Yeah, well, it's a risk.
That'll get better. Yeah, I mean, when you're first introduced to the big leagues, like your strikeout numbers are going to be slightly inflated because it's the hardest place in the world to hit. He's 21. I mean, look, Julio Rodriguez, like his strikeout numbers were really high, but when you break it down, like a lot of those strikeouts were on bad calls, and it seemed like he was getting screwed a little bit, maybe because he's a young player. He's ironed that out a little bit, and I think we all would agree that Julio's probably going to be a superstar for a long time. And I hope the same thing happens with Michael Harris. And with the money, I mean, the Braves just won the World Series. There's money there. Financially, they're able to spend this kind of money. And there's enough money to go around. And if these players are that good, man, hang on to them. And you sign Harris for $72 million over 8 years, you're probably going to save money on that contract.
Yeah.
Probably going to save a lot of money on that contract.
Provided the legs, he keeps his legs under him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
keep him off motorcycles.
Here's some context for this, for our audience. Because this contract gets announced, a lot of people are like, Michael Harris. Oh my God, I can't believe the Braves. What a steal for the Braves. Anthony Rizzo signed a 7 years, $42 million deal. I think that might be the most lopsided deal of all time. He was so good on that contract. There were points where I felt bad for him, where I'm like, holy smokes, this guy should be getting paid $35 million a year. Yeah,
it happens though. For every huge contract and a contract that doesn't necessarily work out in the team's favor, there are contracts, like that where the team gets the better end of it.
Yeah. But
yeah.
to a point too, he had I think it was like his third team. You get traded a little bit, some big league exposure. Like, I can completely understand it. Who can say no to that much money? Like, and
at
to
that
your
age.
point, especially if you're making league minimum and you're living the lifestyle and you kind of see where you stack up, and then someone comes in, they're like, what about $7 million a year? Like, ooh, that's gotta be nice.
If Harris is that sort of player, we're talking the Acuna or Tatis tier. You don't think like he or his agent, his advisors were looking at least briefly at a deal like Tatis. Like if he is that sort of player, and he's a year or two younger when Tatis signed that deal. You see where I'm going with that? Like, you don't think that like they were taking comps and saying, well, this is the kind of guy he is, like, or at least pushing into like the 150 range. I mean, he got a fifth or a quarter of what Tatis got, and granted, it was another 5 years or 6 years that Tatis got, but I don't know. Braves won that deal.
Yeah. Must be good to be an Atlanta Braves fan right now. They just keep, it's like win after win after win. They just beat the shit out of the Mets. They're announcing Michael Harris contracts. The Mets are falling apart.
To be fair, did you see Charlie Morton's stuff last night? I mean, I know you said the Braves embarrassed them, but dude, he's all around the bottom of the zone, in and out, elevating the fastball, nasty changeups to Vogelbach and a couple other guys, and I mean his curveball's devastating. It's a devastating curveball. It's been that way for a while, but no, it wasn't always that way.
Yeah,
I mean, it looks like he's throwing it.
Pirates.
Looks like he's throwing it in a wind tunnel. Like it's a hard breaking curveball, and it's not only. I mean, it's going right to left and down. With very, very high spin. So it's a tough pitch to handle, man. He was really good last night.
Yeah, he's one of the more interesting players to me because he had spent he's got like 2 careers, and they're both very long. I mean, this is his 15th year in the big leagues, and his first 8 years were with those Pirates teams. And he went out and battled and made starts. I think 69 starts over his last 3 years with the Pirates, and at 34 years old, then become an all-star, going to Houston and redefining yourself, and then taking that to another organization where it's like, thanks for what we developed here, but I'm just going to take this show on the road. And isn't he coming back? Impressive. Did he break his leg last year in the playoffs? He got drilled in the leg.
He broke something. I mean, it's just so impressive because the overhanded throwing motion is so bad on your body, so hard on your body and your shoulder. There's so many moving parts in the shoulder, rotator cuff, the labrum, all these little anchor points. And for a guy like that to like keep getting better and maintain velocity, even increase velocity, it's just not something you see very often because we've talked about it. It typically goes the other way. You lose range of motion, you lose velocity. But there's a handful of guys that just keep getting better or sustain their endurance and their strength and their velocity, and it's really incredible. It's super impressive, and he looks like he's still moving really well. He doesn't really show any signs of slowing down, and I hope he doesn't. Like when guys get to like a position or a point like this in their career, you just kind of like as a baseball fan, you just kind of hope that they can keep doing it longer and longer and longer. Because it's just fun to watch, I don't know. There was a point where probably 2 or 3 years ago he was talking about it being his last season, and then he goes out there and dominates, and he's like, well, shit, if somebody's gonna pay me $15+ million a season, like I can't turn that down, right? Like how do you say no? Like maybe his body hurts, maybe his body hurts a little bit, but he's able to get it going enough to still be dominant. So it's like, yep, I'm gonna keep dominating and keep cashing these checks.
I think some people would also like to know, while we're just looking at this, I had no idea that Charlie Morton drilled as many people as he does. He's a 5 times he's led his league in hit by pitches. 5 times. This guy loves drilling dudes. Good for him. Pitch inside, man. It's your part of the plate too.
You have to. Yeah, I would assume that he's done some of that on purpose because his command's pretty damn good. And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with hitting a guy in the elbow or in the hip on purpose. You'd have to look up how many times he's been starting games where there's been some sort of altercation where he needed to, kind of stand up for one of his teammates, which probably doesn't happen as much as you would think. And usually, as a starting pitcher, you don't want to get tossed from the game early. So more times than not, a bullpen guy handles those types of situations. But yeah, that's something I wouldn't expect to see because of how good his command is. But I mean, there are days where shit just gets away from you, and you don't have grip, or it's cold, or whatever it is, and you just wear somebody out.
Did you see any comments from Tatis Sr.?
I saw a little bit of it. I saw one of the quotes that was posted on Twitter. Kind of walked me through this, but it was something about how this was like something irrelevant or not important, and that millions of fans are gonna stop watching baseball, which is just absolutely ridiculous that he thinks that. They're not going to stop watching baseball for a mistake that Tatis Jr. made. I mean, that's and look, like I said, I don't know the full story. He could have easily been taking something for ringworm, but that's not the way you handle it. You don't do it on your own. Go to your trainers, go to your training staff, because like I said before, they're not going to give you something that's going to put you at risk for failing a drug test. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. So, and I know Tatis Sr. is going to stick up for his son, but I think those comments were misguided and probably said out of frustration. But millions of fans are not going to stop watching baseball because of this, because of his mistake. They're going to be upset. They're going to be pissed off that, he's potentially costing his team a shot at the postseason for, a couple mistakes. And I'm frustrated because I want to see him play. I think everybody who's a baseball fan wants to see the best players play the game of baseball, and we're deprived of that because of a couple things that happened to him. One this offseason and one, not so long ago. So, yeah, it's a father sticking up for his son, but he has to understand that you have to pay for your mistakes, and that's what's going on here.
I got the quote exactly. It says, "It was a mistake that could have been handled differently. Destroy the image of a player for such a small thing, for a situation like this, is a catastrophe not just for Tatis Jr., but for all baseball. There's millions of fans that will stop watching baseball." Obviously preposterous.
It couldn't have been handled differently. The only way it could have been handled differently is if Tatis decided to not take what he took. And I don't think that's even a debate. I don't even
now.
think
There is stuff here where he's saying his teammates are jealous. Is there? Do you put anything into that where like maybe there are teammates that are jealous? Tatis Sr. is saying that Tatis Jr.'s teammates are jealous.
What does that have to do with this at all?
Fuck if I know.
I'd say there are guys, and I don't know for sure, but yeah, there's probably guys that are jealous that the guy's making, that he just signed a deal for 14 years and $300 and something million, 400, whatever it is. Yeah, I mean, like, damn, I would like to have some of that money too. A little bit of envy, but that's
what it is.
I don't see what that has to do.
Envy and hypocrisy is all around Junior, even within some of his teammates. This is really sad. So,
and why is his dad saying this? That's just putting more of a divide between Tatis Jr. and his teammates. Like, why even say that?
He's a little bit out there. Tatis Sr. has at one point been a collaborator with Barstool Sports. He used to make pictures with Big Cat back in like 2013 on Microsoft Paint, and they would email each other really off. I would say like really bizarre stuff. It would probably be the most concise way to explain it. So I don't know if he's.
I think he just kind of maybe I don't know what questions he was asked, but seems like slightly irrelevant to the situation about like the envy of his teammates because they didn't make him take the drug test. I mean, this is the Major League Baseball's joint drug policy. We signed, we bargained it. We signed off on it. And it's been this way for a long time. So, but the envy thing, yeah, I mean, people want to make 30, 40 million a year. Not everybody's going to get to do that. So there might be a little envy there, but I think that has nothing to do with his current situation. I mean, what do you think about it?
I think that Tatis Sr. should not have done the interview with Hector Gomez. I think Hector Gomez probably shouldn't have been. I mean, Hector Gomez knows what he's doing. I'm surprised that this,
Yeah, but that's what reporters and that's what media does. When anything controversial happens, they're hitting you up, like hoping that you'll agree to do an interview so they can get one quote or two quotes, maybe chop it up, get you to take it out of context, make you look like an asshole, and then you got to answer more questions about why you said what you said. So a lesson to any young kid, young player watching this, listening to this right now, it's very easy just to say no. Don't put yourself in a compromising position, because and there are good writers out there, but even sometimes good writers will try and get you to say something that puts you in a compromised position, that might hurt your reputation just a little bit. And a lot of them don't care. It's not their reputation, it's yours. So if you feel uncomfortable about doing a potential interview or being asked certain questions, just say no. Just say I'm good.
I'd like to say something real quick. I think there's times when you have to face this stuff, and that's fine. But it should be coming from Tatis Jr. and never his dad. Like, there's no reason that his dad needs to be inserting himself in this. It reminds me of, the Ball family. The guy just runs his mouth, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I just don't think that there's any reason for his dad to be answering questions about his situation.
No, but I think that's why Hector Gomez knew that he would get some stuff from him. That's why he knew, of course.
And look, you have to, Colin, to your point, Tatis Jr. has to face this. There's no question. You can't say, no, I'm not doing the interview. You have to answer all the questions. Once you've addressed everything, then it's like, okay, like I've done all these interviews. I've answered all the questions. I'm going to serve my suspension. Now I'm going to just kind of drift into the background and hopefully this kind of blows over. But yes, I mean, Tatis Sr. definitely doesn't have to do any interviews because he's not doing himself or his son any favors.
Breaking news as we record this: the Rangers just fired John Daniels as president of baseball operations. This is shortly after they just fired Chris Woodward, the manager. I think people would say things are falling apart in Texas right now, but I don't think that's the case. They think you've got an organization that is standing behind a brand new facility, and they're trying to reinvigorate a fan base and capture, really build that brand up. And that's why they went out and got Seager and Simeon. And I think they have to act quickly to maintain that and try and keep that going, because I don't think that fan base is going to be very patient if they're underachieving next year at this time. I don't think the fan base is going to be very patient with them. So I think this is a good move. I mean, I think it's a shitty move from ownership, but I think it's a smart business move from ownership to kind of keep this goodwill momentum going, because they got to get that fan base going. It was rocking for a decade ago, and it's just been dormant for so long now.
Well, when you're in the same state as the Houston Astros, and you've been their little, the stepbrother for a long time, you got to start to compete, and they've never really wanted to spend money on starting pitching either. You can't win in any division without elite starting pitching. And I've always said this: you need at least two horses at the top of the rotation. You need a bona fide ace, and you need a 1B or a very, very solid 2. You just have to. You can't run out there like the Colorado Rockies with a bunch of 5s and expect to win in the AL West or in the NL West. You're just not gonna do it. You can bring in Corey Seager, you can bring in Simeon, but that's just not that. That alone's not going to get the job done. And Seager's having a fine year. Simeon's been struggling. You have to have arms. You have to have legit arms, and you can't just hope that all these young prospects and these guys you drafted are all going to get to the big leagues at the same time and fit into your rotation or your bullpen. Sometimes you have to go pay for established arms, and there's no way around it. The best teams do that.
Well, now I'm just thinking, like, you have the experience of being the established arm when they're like, all right, we got to go get this guy and come on in. Is that, it's like a little bit off topic, but while we're just here, I'm just interested, like, was that a point in your career you looked forward to? Were you like, I want to be the guy that's coming in with the expectations, or was it just another part of your career? Or is it not even a part, you just see your career as like one amalgamation of things?
Yeah, I think it's more of just one part of it. I don't really look at it differently, but like when I was after 2014, we brought in Lester, and we had Kyle Hendricks, we had Jason Hamill, who was pitching really well. Hendricks was pitching the best that he has in his career, and they bring in a piece like Lester, and then the next year we bring in Lackey. So it's like we brought in the right guy at the right time. And I'm sure that Texas has an arm or two that they really like. But if you really want to compete, like, you need to go get a guy like Lester. You need to get a guy like, Lackey, who you bring in for 2 years to help be like that 3 or the 4, but could pitch like a 1 or a 2, consistent. You're going to get 6-7 innings out of him. He's going to go through 100, 110 pitches every start, and he's going to be pissed if you don't allow him to do that. Yeah, I mean, it just has to be done. It has to be done. There's not enough guys to go around. I understand that. But if you're trying to make a statement, and look, all these teams have money. I mean, if you're willing to spend $500 million on 2 guys, like, what's another couple $100 million? Mm-hmm. Nothing.
No. And I will say, like, I give them credit. They did John Gray. I don't know if he's like if that's exactly what they need, but I've got a couple buddies that are real close to the Texas Rangers, and the reaction that I've gotten from them is just complete and utter shock over the last week about, like, pulling these moves. And now they've got a couple different directions they can go in the offseason. There's a couple front offices now. The Tigers are going to be looking for some help. The Angels are obviously going to be reshuffling the deck on their front office. Throw the Rangers into the mix. This is like an identity crisis time for front offices too, because you have the analytic powerhouses where people have tried to replicate it, and then they take, we're going to take the assistant general
manager. Yeah, it's
all
copy. Everybody tries to copy everybody.
It's all bullshit.
It's copy and paste, and I think a lot of teams are starting to realize that some of this stuff doesn't work as well as they thought it would. And you mentioned John Gray. John Gray's a nice arm. He's a really nice arm. I see currently he's made 19 starts. I mean, he's currently healthy, but I mean, who do they? I know they have that Hearn kid, the lefty, who's got really, really big upside. But then what else? What else do they have?
They like Dane Dunning because they don't think that Dane Dunning will ever be, like, particularly bad, but they don't think that Dane Dunning will ever be – like, they just think Dane Dunning can go out and make 30 starts a year every single year and pitch to, like, a 3.8, 4.1 ERA, not walk anybody and move the game along.
Yeah.
Yes.
You need 1 or 2 of those guys, and that's kind of what, like, Jason Hamill was and Kyle Hendricks was, but Hendricks had the ability – to pitch to, like, in the 2s, so, like, you could get way more out of him, but you need 3. I'd say you need 3 guys that can dominate, and then you need 2 or 3 other guys that can give you innings and just take the burden off of the bullpen and mess around and find a way to win 10 games, 12 games. And I mean, and finding 5 guys like that, it is hard to do. But man, if you just sit idly by and watch, I mean, these better organizations, these organizations that aren't afraid to spend some money are going to go take them from you. They're not going to be there forever. Like, everybody always needs starting pitching.
Speaking of starting pitching, there was a good one last night. We should talk a little bit about it. But first, let's get to Joe Davis. Let's talk about our good friends from Doer Jeans. I'm actually wearing the shorts now. You want to talk about stretchy, durable fabric? I'm ready to go.
I'm going to throw them on right after the show. God, I got to look through that box.
It feels so good. I wore the jeans out to a very like these dark, nice, snug. Like, I felt like I looked good with my button up on. But they were super comfortable. I wore them to this like fancy party I had to go to over the weekend, and everybody's like, "Damn, Carl, you look so good." And I'm like, "Oh, dude, they're Doer jeans." And the tees they sent, unbelievable.
How good, dude? The tees are amazing. Very, very soft. They fit a nice body very well. Like the cut, like around the biceps, they're not super baggy. It's like a tailored suit. It just makes you look better. It makes you feel more confident. So Doer did a really good job on the cut of their shirts. I haven't put the jeans on yet because it's just so goddamn hot here. Mm-hmm. I hope they sent me a pair of shorts. I'm gonna go look. If they didn't, please send me more. Please send me more.
Yeah, they really too. Guys that, certain guys look good in shorts, and you and I are two of them. I'll be honest. Like, I'm a shorts guy, like wearing shorts, and these, like, still I get compliments. I've been walking around, people are like, "Oh, what's it?" And they got like a little zip pocket. You'll like this. Couple fanny pack guys like you and me. The functionality in a couple cuts of their shorts where they've got like this little hidden side pocket. Keys, valuable, whatever. You're going for a hike. You don't want to, bring the credit cards. Maybe you want to make sure the phone doesn't fall out or something. Just a great little functional pocket. And if you guys don't believe me, if you're listening to this and you think I'm a sandbag and son of a gun, I got news for you. I don't lie about stuff like this, particularly apparel. When something fits a body like mine, you got to celebrate it. You really do.
Well, and when you find something that fits really well, I tend to buy like 4 or 5 of them, just so it'll appear that I'm wearing the same thing every day, and I'm wearing the same thing every day, but I have multiple, pairs or multiple shirts because you and I both appreciate good apparel, and there's nothing worse than looking for your favorite shirt or your favorite pair of shorts and they're not clean. So my advice is find a pair of Doer shorts that you really like, get 3 or 4 pairs of them. Just so then you can rotate. One's dirty, you throw them in the wash, you throw the next one on, and move about your day.
Amen. For our listeners, discover the lightweight luxury of performance naturals, whether you're a corporate climber or a mountain climber. Ooh, I like that. Take 15% off online at shopdoer.com or in store using code STARTING. One word, just starting. 15% off. This is good stuff, guys. Get that wardrobe ready for fall. All right, speaking of fall, you're going to be hearing this guy's voice like crazy. He's going to be calling World Series. He's going to be calling NFL on Fox. It's Joe Davis is going to be joining us. Joe Davis is also the broadcaster for the Dodgers. I'm learning more about the broadcast industry. His responsibilities are quite robust. He's 34 years old, and I think his story and rise to the top, while accelerated, is completely because he is as good as you can be for doing this stuff. And for our Chicago guys that follow me, he's a Schaumburg Flyer. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about his experiences with the Schaumburg Flyers. Lovely. Jake?
Yes, sir.
Let's get to Joe Davis, and let's talk about some broadcasters. All right, here's Joe Davis. All right, we're in the interview portion of today's show. We are joined by Joe Davis, broadcaster. And I guess, Joe, you've got so much on your plate. If someone comes up to you and they ask you, like, what do you do for a living? How do you even start when you look at your resume?
Geez, I guess I guess it kind of depends on how deep I want to get into a conversation with the person that asks. Because if it's somebody who's ready to talk for an hour about the sports you cover, maybe you're not going in the route and telling them exactly what you do. But I think my stock answer is usually I'm a sportscaster, and it usually does lead to a pretty cool conversation because you guys know, like, what better job is there than getting paid to talk about sports?
Yeah, yeah, there's no doubt about that. And you're a relatively young guy. You're 34 years old. Is that correct? And to kind of do what you've done, to grind it out and to start where you started, and now to be here. I'm sure at times it seemed like it took a long while to get here, but can you just explain to our listeners kind of how you were introduced to broadcasting and why it became such a passion for you? And did you ever think that you would be at this point where you're at now, being the main broadcaster for the Los Angeles Dodgers?
Yeah, Jake, I'm lucky in that I've always known, like, as far back as you go, having dreams about being something when you grow up, this is what I wanted to do. So I think it started there, and that probably put me ahead of the curve a little bit, guided my decision making in terms of where I went to college and what I did once I got there. And yeah, I mean, like you mentioned the grind part of it. A few years doing minor league baseball, and I'm very realistic. I know that there are a lot of guys out there who grinded a lot longer and are still grinding in the minors that deserve opportunities that haven't gotten them yet. But there were those few years of riding the buses through the Southern League, and wondering if anybody was listening, wondering if anybody was ever going to hear me, and I was ever going to make it to where I wanted to go. But I've just always tried to look at every game, first of all, as, again, like, what would I rather be doing than talking about sports? But look at every game, and baseball's great for this, a chance to get better because it's every day. And I think if you look at every game as a chance to get a little bit better over the course of a minor league season, especially, like, where for me it was kind of an experimentation, and you can find me one day screaming my head off on a home run, and the next day, like Pat Summerall going straight on a home run. That exploration, that experimentation, there's no better place to do that than in baseball.
And the game of baseball can be slow, can be somewhat boring. And you obviously had a couple incredible mentors, in Joe Buck. You work with Oral Hershiser and obviously Vin Scully. Vin Scully had a way of, allowing pause for the crowd noise and for the listeners to enjoy that aspect of the game. Have you taken some of that from him and incorporated it into how you like to call games, or are there things that are unique to yourself, or have you, as coming up as a young player in the big leagues, you need mentors and you pick and choose things from their routine or things that they did to help them have success? Are you kind of a combination of all of these guys, or do you have certain things that are also unique to the way that you like to call the game?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. So the big advice that Vin gave me when I took the Dodger job was simple advice, but it's be yourself, and it's the same advice that Red Barber gave him when he started in 1950 doing Brooklyn Dodger games. And I think that it's important that we learn from the people that came before us. And, in my case, the greatest ever to do it in Vin, and now in this Fox chair, I think the greatest of this generation in Joe Buck. Take the things from those guys that you admire, learn from what made them, and make them as great as they are and were, but don't lose yourself in it. And so, yeah, from Vin, the storytelling. I don't think that there's ever been a better storyteller in the job. I don't think there ever will be. And you talk about him, laying out in those big moments. I think that's something that Joe Buck does as well as anybody. I don't know that there's anyone in this generation or ever that has elevated moments and risen to the moments to capture those big baseball moments like Joe Buck has. So those two guys for sure, and so many others. You guys know too, this business is so cool because there's so many people who are willing to give back. And I really am a product of so many people going out of their way, giving me time, giving me advice when they didn't have to, but I think they did it because the guys did it for them. And it's a really cool thing that this gets passed on from generation to generation in this business.
If we asked your wife, would she say you're a good storyteller? Like, are your buddies like, oh, yeah, Joe, let him go for a little bit, or was that kind of a daunting thing to take on to pay homage to Vin?
Yeah, Carl, it's something I don't know that I'm naturally like a great storyteller. It's something I've studied both from listening to Vin and going back and critiquing myself and uh, reading books about storytelling too. Like I'm just, it's Vin. I think was a natural storyteller, yeah, but he also for 67 years had been honing that. So it's something that I really work at. And, when I go back and listen to my own broadcasts and critique myself, I do find my ears perking up when I hear myself tell a story. That doesn't mean it's a good story. I just think that means it's kind of the human condition to want to hear stories about people. So I think that's a big thing, recognizing that it is something that folks want to hear. And then from there, finding a way to tell the stories so they're easily digested and memorable.
Is there a difference? And Carl and I were talking about this before the show. Is there a difference in the way that you will deliver and tell a story on a live broadcast versus, say, you and some buddies are hanging around, sitting having a couple drinks?
It's a good question. Yeah, I guess there's probably, I don't have the cleanest mouth off the air, so there's probably some profanity when we're sitting around having a couple of drinks telling a story. I don't know that I want to go that route on TV. I think the same principles apply, though, right? You got that good hook at the start of a story as opposed to kind of drifting into it. And I think that I was guilty of that early in my career, and I'm sure I am sometimes still too, where it's like a drift in and then a bullet point, a bullet point, a bullet point, like just kind of these asides, as opposed to structuring a story where you get the hook and then you kind of build up. Like you think of it as like a mini movie where the storyline builds and then you get the climax to the story and then you cap it with a memorable line. So however you can kind of structure the story to be like that, I don't know that I'm thinking that deeply about it when I'm having a beer or an old fashioned with the boys, when I'm delivering a story to those guys.
Is this something you'll put pen to paper to like work through things and then process them and say, okay, I kind of like the way this is flowing, or I might change this or that, or is this just something that's kind of internal that you process kind of in your own head? Because I would think that, well, at least for me, it would be easier to put it, pen to paper, read through it, and then okay, I have this down, so when the moment comes, I'm ready to kind of deliver this to the best of my ability.
Yeah, I do put a lot down. I use a program called Microsoft OneNote, and I started using this when I started doing Major League Baseball games, which would have been 2014, 15, and I kind of describe it as my digital brain. It's just everything that I've learned and everything I've read has gone into there, and I've got a tab for every team. Under each one of those tabs, I've got a tab for every player that's constantly evolving, and I'm constantly updating it. But it is that fine line, Jake, where I don't want to be in there like writing scripts for myself, because I think when you're reading off a script, it's going to sound like that, and it's not going to be that easily digested story for a listener. So yeah, what as I've studied the storytelling thing and tried to get better at it, I think that the biggest thing has been having, and again, it's not scripted, but having a way into the story. Maybe that's a quote, maybe it's a word or two to spark it for you, and having a way to get out. So you're not drifting in, you're not drifting out, you're getting in with a nice hook, and you're getting out with something memorable. So those parts, while not scripted, they are there, and I do spend time on each guy going through and creating those.
And Vin, he was really, really good about telling long stories or kind of drawing them out, but you never wanted them to end, is what it seemed. Are you careful about trying to not let stories linger too long? Is there like a time frame of a good story, and if you kind of surpass that, then you just kind of lose your audience?
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to that. And as far as within a baseball broadcast, you never want to start too long of a story with 2 outs. Definitely don't want to do it with 2 outs and 2 strikes. So finding the spots within the inning where to start it. And then, yeah, I think with any story, whether you're a baseball announcer or you're hanging out with the boys, you get going too long and you're going to lose people. So, yeah, I think Vin had this magical ability to tell these stories. Like you said, sometimes they would go longer. It's almost like the game was in on it with him, and the game would cooperate. If he had a longer story, somebody's going to foul off a few more pitches for him. If he has a story where he caps it, the dude's probably going to strike out and end the inning right as he caps a story. It was just this beautiful marriage that you had between Vin's storytelling, and it was like between that and the baseball gods married
You're right.
To create that.
You're absolutely right about that.
I was out in Iowa for Field of Dreams, and I, after the game, had spent some time with guys behind the scenes with your broadcast. I'm not going to name names, but I got some buddies, in different, we'll just say stationed at different parts. And so we're hanging out, having a couple pops. I brought up the fact we'd be talking. And I said, if there is one thing you'd really want to know from, Joe's experience and everything, what exactly would it be? And without hesitation, the group, people on your side of the table, wanted to know if you would think that Vin could have success in today's age with such short attention spans and social media if someone as talented with his skill set were to arrive day one and they'd said, here's a special broadcaster. Do you think the industry or the decision makers would receive a guy like that, or would they try and turn him, into something different?
It's a fascinating question, but yeah, I think without question. I think that stories and storytelling and the human condition, those things are timeless. And especially when you combine that with Vin's voice and his delivery and the palette that a baseball game is, it allows for those things. And so it wasn't that long ago, right, that Vin was doing this and loved for it. 2016, I guess, would still be kind of this generation of short attention spans, and he was everybody's favorite for good reason. So I think that Vin's style and the storytelling that he brought, I really do think timeless, and you could put him in any generation, and he's going to be the best.
I couldn't agree more with that, Joe. I just think the poetic elegance that Vin showcased night in, night out is something that even kids with short attention spans can listen to and really appreciate. And I think that the voice, like you said, is such a big part of it. Like, you have a great voice, Joe Buck, obviously Vin Scully. I love listening to Oral talk about the game. Is that something that, you really can't teach that, but have you ever come into contact with guys who will try and kind of alter the way that their voice will sound to make it more palatable on either radio or broadcast?
Yeah, I think we're all probably a little bit guilty of it. I know, like, I have been throughout my career, and that's been part of hopefully my growth, is just kind of letting myself talk and not trying to sound the way that you think you're supposed to sound. Actually, when I was in college, I went to a school that was not a broadcasting school. But because of that, it was a small school. I could kind of tailor it to what I wanted to do. I worked with the theater professor there, like independent study on voice, and basically leveraging what you have to sound the best you can. And so that just has to do with breathing and the way that you project. So as opposed to like putting on a voice, just making the most of what you've got.
And will you talk from, and I forget who it was. It was an NBA broadcaster. It might have been, I don't know if it was Jason Williams, but a former player. And he said he used to speak with a lisp, and he went to a speech coach, and they had him put like two of his fingers on his teeth and make these noises. And what it helped him do was speak from his stomach instead of just from his throat. And he noticed that not only helped him with his lisp, but helped him enunciate and sound more bold, or just heavier, like a more interesting voice. So I think I try and do that too. I'm sure you have a lot, because you can get way more out of it if you use like your diaphragm and from your belly. Have you worked on any of that? Do you do breath work, or is it just natural now?
Yeah, that's a lot of what I did with that theater instructor, is diaphragm breathing. And I think you're talking about what I was, and that is kind of making the most of what you have. All those vocal mechanisms we got. I think when we're not paying attention to it, they talk about social breathing, which is more up here and like just kind of talking from your throat, as opposed to using the structures that we have and breathing deep and like you talk about the boldness that creates. I think of it as richness, kind of a more fullness to the voice, and that comes from using the whole mechanism.
Absolutely.
I got to go home and do some work. I got to go think about things.
Gotta go breathe.
Exactly what you just described, and I'm pretty sure you just gave me a little impersonation there. So that was good. I appreciate that. Do you keep score?
Yeah. Yep. And I think you've got to in order to do the job, in order to do play-by-play where you're telling the story of the game. And, yeah, I do keep score.
Is there anything kind of unique that you've picked up throughout the broadcast or stuff that you've learned now? Because I want to go back. 2009 Schaumburg Flyers, shout out Independent Baseball. That's like our neighborhood team, and I understand you were kind of the broadcasting partner or in charge of all media and broadcasting for them at the time. So I guess maybe more about how has your kind of approach to tracking a game changed from when you came on? Because I'm sure there's information overload where you want to be paying attention to a lot of stuff. Is there something where like your mind's like, you know what, I actually like runners in scoring position with 2 outs more? There's kind of statistics or things you gravitate to as you're telling your story.
For sure. First of all, the '09 Schaumburg Flyers gig, that was my first real broadcasting job, and I'm pretty sure it was illegal what we were doing. I didn't get paid a cent, and I was there like 8 in the morning doing sales calls, doing game notes, and then doing the games. But I was like, I'm living the dream, baby. I'm pulling up to a ballpark. Didn't make a cent the entire season. I don't think that's legal. Anyways, yeah, it's the way that I keep score, the way that I prep, it's always evolving. I think the biggest shift has been I don't put as much on that score sheet at first. It's like, okay, I kind of equate it to jumping in the pool without floaties for the first time when you're learning how to swim. I would put all the information down there because like I got to have it in front of me. But then a few years, actually a year or two into doing the Dodgers, I think, so 16 or 17, Joe Buck, Brian Anderson of the Brewers, both those guys had the same idea, and it was, this stuff, so trust it. And it's going to open you up to just talk and just like, you're going to have your notes there on your computer. You don't need it all on your score sheet. So I now use the sheet that the press box prints off in each ballpark. I don't spend an hour filling out my book, putting the names and the numbers and the averages and all that in. I take the sheet that they print out. I'll put down a note or two, like a headline for the guy to kind of get me into the discussion, to get me into that bank of knowledge that I have. But I guess that's a long way of saying less is more, and I've gone that way as my career's gone on.
Are there scorecards that you've kept or filed away that are very important to you or from monumental games? And do you frame any of them? Do you have them in your office? Do you have guys sign them? And yeah, what's your take on memorabilia? Are there special things that you've kept over time that are really important to you?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. I have in my office at home, and I have 3 framed score sheets. I have my first score sheet as a baseball broadcaster, Schaumburg Flyers at Joliet Jackhammers.
Wow.
2009.
Jackhammers.
Yeah, that's right. It's got some handwritten notes up there that I had found. I don't remember how I found this stuff, just old boxes, but a score sheet and then some prep notes that I just jotted down on the Jackhammers player. So that's one frame. The next one is my first as the voice of the Biscuits, Montgomery Biscuits.
Montgomery Biscuits.
That I joke with people. That's when I knew I had made it, guys. When I was doing games for a team with a mascot with a slab of butter for its tongue. Like, I've arrived, boys. So that one's in the middle, and then the third one that I have on there is my first game with the Dodgers, and that is signed by Oral and by Nomar Garciaparra. It was a 3-man booth that first game. It's Dodgers Padres in 2016, and I think the next one that I'm going to put up there, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do this, but I think I'm going to lose the Schaumburg one, maybe put that or lose the Montgomery one, put that somewhere else. So I'll have first game as a baseball broadcaster, 09 Schaumburg. First game with the Dodgers, 16 against the Padres. And then I'm going to put my first World Series scorecard up there too, I think.
I've heard the story of you kind of getting that call. You were in Vegas or Napa Valley or something? And the head of Fox comes out to you to meet with you personally to tell you, what was it?
Yeah, it kind of seen it coming, right? Like you didn't want to take it for granted, but first you heard Aikman was going to ESPN, and then it was like, oh my God, Buck might follow him. And it's like, okay, he might follow him, and if he does, I think I'm the guy, but I don't know that I'm the guy. And you got more and more information as all these things fell into place. And then I was in Vegas doing the Pac-12 basketball tournament, And Brad Zager, our executive producer, called me on Friday. It was like a 30-second call. And I, at this point, knew what was coming. But he said, hey, do you have time before the championship game tomorrow? If I fly in from LA, do you have an hour for me? I was like, yeah, great. He said, okay, see you then. Okay, what's happening? It's amazing, guys. Like, your dream's coming true, but you got to go to bed. You got to wait 24 hours to hear it officially. He flew to Vegas, and we sat down, and he said, we talked for a few minutes, and he said, I'm here to offer you the chance to be the voice of baseball. And I broke down like a chick on The Bachelor. Like,
Wow.
I was just a mess.
Now, what was that phone call? You call your wife, I'm assuming, right
Yeah.
after that, and she, like, you had talked with her, you guys kind of knew it was going to happen, but what was that like for her to get that call?
It was a really, really stressful couple weeks after the first Joe Buck rumor came out. Because, like, Joe's a mentor of mine and a friend of mine, but I'm not going to be calling and being like, okay, Joe, I hear you might be going. What do you got for me? Are you really leaving? Is this right? So I've got to kind of follow this through social media and just through the rumors we're hearing like everybody else, because I don't know that anybody knew for sure. So it was a really stressful few weeks where I finally got through my head like, okay, if this happens, great. If it doesn't, I'm the voice of the Dodgers, still doing playoff games for Fox, great. And I had just finally gotten that through my head when we got the first confirmation. My agent said, just talk to so-and-so at Fox. Buck is going to get out of his deal and go to ESPN, and you're going to be the guy. And that's the first time where I lost it a little bit. I remember where I was with my wife there on the couch when we found that out. But then, yeah, that call back home to tell her that it had happened. I'll never forget that. That and the one to my parents too.
It's amazing.
So growing up in Potterville, Michigan, I believe, I checked the census. I think it's like population 2,200 or something.
Yeah.
Is there like somebody in particular that stands out early that was encouraging for you? You say that like you recognize you want to be a broadcaster, but I feel like so many people's dreams are just instantly put down because it's like, oh, that's impossible, or you can't do it, or you obviously were able to hold on to this for so long. Is there somebody in your life that really helped you kind of bridge that gap, whether it was getting to Beloit College or once you got there or something beforehand?
It's my parents. Yeah, all along. My dad's a Hall of Fame high school football coach in Michigan, so I grew up around sports, playing for him, and my mom deserves just as much credit as he does for, like, from before I even knew it, they were encouraging me to chase my dreams. And then I get into college, and I'm playing football at Beloit, but blew out my shoulder, so the whole quarterback thing was in question. I wasn't loving school there. And I was seeing the writing on the wall, like studying the industry and thinking, man, there's like 200 people that are applying for each one of these minor league jobs. I got no shot to do this. So I remember calling home being like, guys, I think I'm going to transfer. Maybe I'll come coach with you, Dad. Maybe I'll become a lawyer. I don't know where I got that from. But I had like a week there where I was thinking of that, and my parents let me say that. And then they were like, you're not doing that. You're going to do what you've always dreamt of, and you're going to do it well. So keep chasing those dreams. And I don't know that I ever really would have pulled the trigger on making that left turn, but even if I had wanted to, I don't think my mom and my dad would have let me.
Can you explain a little bit what it's like to go into, say, like a Pac-12 basketball tournament like you did, and not be very familiar with many of the players or many of the teams in general? What will that preparation process be like for you? Are you just basically sitting down and grinding out over all the rosters and how the team seasons have went, and making sure you're not messing up any names? Because I know that's probably got to make some people fairly nervous. So is that something that's just like you're just cramming to make sure you get everything down as well as you can?
Yeah, it really is. And the prep, Jake, is, and you guys know this too, it's a big chunk of the job. I don't know if it's 70% or 90% or whatever it is, but a lot of the work is done before you actually go on the air. And that is something where you parachute in and you pick these teams up a week before or so. You read everything you can. You make your spotting charts for football and for basketball where the guys are moving all over, so you have to have ways to quickly spot them and find that information. Baseball's different because they come up in a same order and they play the same spot, so you have time to find it. So it's a little bit different in that way in your prep, but you got to nail the basics. You got to get the names right. And there's no better way to lose credibility than to mispronounce a guy. To call him Jake Arrieta,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. You're absolutely right. When someone misses a name, you're like, damn, they were so close.
Yeah, good try. Good try. Not quite it though. So
Yeah.
I mean that's everything, and it's different for every sport, but the fundamentals of it remain the same. Where the prep is in a lot of ways what kind of defines the job.
Yeah, dude, you've definitely buried the stigma that I think people carry with broadcasters about. I mean, there's plenty of them that grew up in it that have greater advantages, but it certainly seems like when you went for that first minor league position or whatever, I'm trying to think like what does it separate about a broadcaster that makes them stand out in an entire field to get to where you're at if you don't have those clear-cut born advantages of like, oh, here, meet my son Joe Davis. He would be great for this job. Like, at any point did you have any of that?
No, the family part of it, no. I think any of us who experience success, there is a fair amount of luck to it. There is a fair amount of timing to it. One story in particular, when I was in Montgomery, my first week on the job, I'm 22 years old and just trying to survive and figure it out as I go here. And first week I get an email, because we'd give the email address on the air, send in a note if you're listening. Like, is anybody listening? Somebody send me an email, please. I got an email from a guy named Dan Quinn, and it's this long email basically critiquing my first week on the air. I'm like, well, this is not why I gave my email address. What the hell is this? I get to the bottom and I see Dan Quinn, ESPN Communications. I was like, okay, that's interesting. Well, it turns out Dan had blown out his Achilles playing pickup soccer, and so was on leave from his job in PR at ESPN. Was a minor league baseball fan. Hopped onto the Biscuits website to buy a hat because he thought it was a cool name. Hit the Listen Live link and thought, this guy's pretty good, and I'm going to listen to this. Well, Dan wasn't somebody who could hire anybody in my position, but he became a Biscuits fan, and after a few months, I asked him if he could introduce me to somebody at ESPN. He gave me the contact info for somebody at ESPNU. I told the people in Charlotte I was going to be in Charlotte and would love to swing in. I had no reason to be in Charlotte, but they said, okay, yeah, swing in. So I drove from Montgomery to Charlotte, went in, introduced myself. And so, yeah, there's an example of just stupid luck cracking open a door that I was able to slip through.
So what do Joe Davis's haters look like? The types of criticism that you'll get from an audience. Are you getting emails? Are you getting blown up on social media? And do you take some? I mean, we all take some harsh criticism seriously.
Yeah.
Are there games that you look back on and think, well, you know what, they were right. I didn't do as good of a job as I could have there. And do you use that, or you just kind of brush it off?
I'm getting better, guys, at staying off social media. I think
Good idea.
Like play-by-play announcers, that might be the short list of jobs where you shouldn't be on there. It's like, I know, so say I get 10 tweets, 9 of them are nice, 1 of them's mean. First of all, we're all wired to pay attention to the mean one. But just as important, those 9 nice ones, why do those matter? I know when I'm good. I know when I suck. I shouldn't be defined by pulling up Twitter, and my performance shouldn't be defined in my own mind by what Twitter tells me. So I've done a lot better job of not relying on that to tell me if I was good or tell me if I wasn't on a particular night. What do my critics look like? I mean, naturally you get the people in LA who say you'll never be Vin, and I'm always quick to, I don't reply anymore, but my thing is always, you're right, of course I'm
Hard
not.
to be him. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I think that there's not always going to be, hopefully, but there's been the stigma of you don't know what you're talking about. You're too young to know what you're talking about, and like what? It's fine. Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
I think that like the bigger the chair and the bigger the games, the more critics there are going to be, and that's fine. That's part of the gig. No different than a player, right? The higher the level, the more critics there are. The bigger the game, the better you better be, and the more people are going to hate on you if you don't do great. So, yeah, I think that it's just something that you've got to not get too wrapped up in.
Yeah. Hey, honestly, thanks so much for your time, Joe. I am curious, just kind of as you're getting into fall, you have been promoted for NFL stuff on Fox, or you're working with Moose now. What does your schedule look like as you're going to kind of get into, I would imagine, the busiest time of the year for you?
Yes. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. I thought it was me.
Let's just
It's on me.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So NFL is going to be the number 2 crew, Moose Johnson. We start off with 49ers, Bears, week 1 in Chicago. Let's see we got Ravens, Patriots, week 3. But yeah, it'll be extra busy, going from Dodgers to NFL and then NFL to MLB postseason. And but man, like I'm pinching myself every day. Like, let's do this. Busy, amazing.
Is the
Amazing
NFL
stuff,
the
man.
hardest to call because of how fast things are going? And like when you hear Joe Buck, when there's somebody on a tackle and even on live TV, it's sometimes it's hard to see who's in there, and they always get it right. And number 54, so and so on the tackle, or two or three guys. Is that the harder sport to call, the hardest sport to call because of the pace of the game?
They're hard they all have their own challenges. Football's hard, for reasons like that. We actually have in the booth spotters who help us with that. My spotter's my dad, which is the coolest thing. But I don't know. They're all challenging for different reasons. Baseball challenging for the reasons we were talking about earlier. It's a long and can be slow game. How do you make that interesting? How do you make it interesting every day? So different challenges for all of them make them difficult and easy in their own ways.
So you're definitely going down in history as you want to be the baseball guy first, it seems like.
Not necessarily, honestly. Like, no, growing up in a football family, football's always been the one. Had you asked me when I was a kid, and had you asked me a year ago and 5 years ago, if there's one game you could do, what would it be? Game 7 of the World Series. I always would have told you. So in that respect, I guess, gun to my head, baseball would be the one. But 1A and 1B, 1B and 1A, football and baseball, depending on which one I'm doing.
Well, you're the voice
Joe,
of the world, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on. It's a pleasure to talk with you. Look forward to doing it again sometime. And, best of luck to you and the Dodgers.
Thank you, guys. It's great to talk to you at any time, okay?
And that's Joe Davis.
You got to talk from the belly. Expand the midsection, not from the throat.
I did think he was making fun of me. He wasn't. He wouldn't make fun of me.
It's when you hear guys with voices like that, you kind of get a little jealous, and you wonder, like, are they trying to do this? Do they have to put a lot of effort in to speak this way, or are they just born with it? I think that it's probably a combination of that. It's some hard work. He talked about how he does some breathing techniques and preparing his voice. Ron Burgundy sits in his chair and he's saying he repeats like 5 or 6 words to himself to get his mouth ready to talk. I wonder if he has something like that. We should have asked him. Maybe I'll shoot him a text and we'll ask him about that. But
yeah, I think he likes, what if it's like a spoonful of honey, a glass of warm milk.
It's just natural. It's a natural. He was just born for broadcasting.
Do you still drink milk? You like dairy?
No, I don't drink milk at all. I think it's disgusting when people I see drink milk with like a meal, like spaghetti or like a steak. I don't understand how you can even think that is something that would be good to do, but people like it. Me personally, I don't drink milk. If it's
very
cooked,
respectful answer from you.
yeah. If there's milk in a recipe, I don't mind it, but I don't like actively seek out milk. If I drink milk, it's with like cookies or something like that, or like a brownie. I think chocolate and milk go well together, but anything else, no.
Circumstance.
I'm off.
It's about circumstance.
Yeah. It's not good for
okay.
you really either.
Do you guys talk about broadcasters, by the way? Like, Joe Davis, obviously, thank you very much for coming on the show. I don't even know if I said that. I was so busy wrapped up in my voice. When you guys are like in the clubhouse, you're like, this guy's an asshole. Like, did you hear the shit they were saying about Bob last night?
Yeah. I mean, there's guys that bury you or other guys, and you're like, whoa, like that was rough. Bob Costas, you remember when he buried Pedro Strop? We were playing in St. Louis. It was like a Fox game or something, and Strop like gave up the lead and walked a guy, hit a guy, gave up a double, something like that. And, Strop would do this and pay his respects, as like a lot of guys do, good or bad performance. Just, thankful that, they came out of the game healthy or for whatever reason. And Costas, goes, you can only hope that Pedro Strop is looking up to the heavens and asking his dead relatives for forgiveness for that atrocious performance. And I'm just like, that's the most insane roast of a player I've ever heard from a broadcaster. And I like Bob Costas. He's a little pocket guy. He's usually very, very sweet. I've spent some time with him, but that was harsh. And I really don't have like a list of guys that I like love as broadcasters. There's guys that you listen to. Obviously, Vin Scully's voice, you could listen to him talk forever. Joe Davis is up there. Joe Buck is great. I like Troy Aikman. Pat Summerall was really, really good. Joe Madden was great. There are guys that you don't like to listen to. There are some broadcasters that will just put you to sleep. I mean, the guys in Cincinnati would put you to sleep. The guys in the old guys in St. Louis would put you to sleep. And I feel like one of them just recently retired. I think he was doing it for 50-something years. So maybe it's because he was just on the back end and seemed a little sauced up every time he was doing the game, which I admire. The guys in Pittsburgh kind of annoyed me a little bit, but they were fine.
I thought the Strop and Costas thing too. I can't remember it. If you're watching this on YouTube, I've got my Strop hat on. He would cock his hat to the side as like a tribute to his father, the fisherman or something. Is allegedly the story. That's how his dad wore his hat. That's like the story there, and people would rip on Pedro Strop for how he wore his hat, and then people would be like, no, that's like his way of honoring his dad or something. Or
well, he was extremely nasty for quite a while, and him and I were obviously traded to the Cubs in the same same deal for no, I can't even think of it.
Steve Clevenger and Scott Feldman.
Feldman, there you go.
Or not Clevenger. Yeah. We got Clevenger.
Yeah.
I say we. I wasn't on that team.
You felt like part of it, though.
You know what?
And in a way, you were part of it. You were part of it. Your support was appreciated.
I'm speechless because sometimes I am thinking about it because it has been awkward. I do catch myself saying, and not even on the show. I'm just saying when I'm talking about the Cubs, or I'll be like bullshitting with the boys and stuff, and you're talking about it, and it's like now because I'm working with you and stuff, I'm like I gotta lose. I can't. It's a little disrespectful to you for me to be standing over here talking about we in 2016, those days, but we're working through it. We're figuring it out.
Well, it's understandable because you feel like you're in the trenches with us. And that's how fans are supposed to feel. Nothing wrong with it at all.
The good ones, at least. Speaking of fans, can we get Colin in here for a second? I just need to talk to you about the Mets. More importantly, I just want to talk a little bit of shit to you. You guys have scored 9 runs over the last 5 games. Just bats are ice cold right now, and you have how many more as of recording in Atlanta?
We got 2 more games, but we got the top two guys going right now. Scherzer tonight and DeGrom tomorrow.
That's
And
2 wins.
yeah, that as long as the bats show up, then yeah, you got to pencil those in as wins. But we took 4 out of 5 from the Braves last week. We came into this 5.5 up. That's why you build a lead in the division, so you can handle a couple losses like this. The Braves, they look good, but they don't scare me batting 14 innings against Mets bullpen when our starters have been knocked out from injury in the second inning each time. So, congrats to the Braves on their second World Series.
It's fucking your shit talk. It is getting better. I do appreciate that. Some other Mets fans are saying that lead is dwindling. It doesn't matter yet right now, I suppose, because there's still a ton of competitive baseball to be played. If you look ahead, I want to look ahead of this weekend. Sandy Alcantara, I'll never say it right. He's pitching against Los Angeles. He's pitching against the Dodgers on Sunday.
Yeah, he's winning the National League Cy Young, and Dylan Cease is going to win the American League Cy Young.
You think so?
I think so, yeah.
All right, so Dylan Cease pitched last night against the Astros. And
yeah, he did.
He came out a little bit early, but he had some filthy stuff.
Did all right. Yeah, he had great stuff. I mean, he went 5, gave up 3 runs. Verlander went 7 and gave up 3 runs. Mm-hmm. Another guy, it's just incredible to continue to do what he's doing. I hope he does it for another 3 or 4 years. Just continues to make history along with Scherzer.
I watched Joe Musgrove and I watched Alcantara pitch earlier this week, and I don't know if I've been the polish in the athleticism to repeat his delivery that Alcantara has is really impressive. Like
as a guy who's that size too, he's got to be 6'6", I believe. Yeah, I mean it says 6'5". I think he's bigger than that. He's a big man, and he throws really, really hard. He's got a great changeup, good feel for pitching, and he's only 26. Only 26 years old. Just a very bright star in the game.
You know what we talked about? Let's. You said at the start of the show, kids are back in school, so let's pivot. I want to do a little roundup close here.
Yeah, and I got before we finish, I got something to tell you too. So go ahead.
I was gonna say Alcantara being 26, like him and Coop could be in the same rotation one day.
Well, so let's say, so Cooper's almost 11. Yeah, I mean, he'd have to get to the big leagues fairly quick, and Alcantara would have to stay healthy. Yeah, so if he could pitch to his mid-late 30s, Coop's got a shot. He's got a shot. But we're in the middle of football season. I mean, we still mess around with baseball. I got a cage going in the backyard next week, so we'll be hitting. But dude, it's Monday through Thursday football practice, 6 to 8 o'clock. Like we don't really have much time for other sports because football practice is hard here in Texas. So we got to maintain as much energy as we can.
Yeah. What do you got?
So I texted Garrett Cole yesterday. I sent some cards up to Rizzo that he's going to sign for me. I threw a Garrett Cole in there and an Aaron Judge, and I text Cole. I said, "Hey man, I'm sending some cards to Rizzo. Would really love for you to sign them if you don't mind, because we're gonna put our personal collection together and have them in the bar downstairs." And he ghosted me. He hadn't texted me back, so I don't know if he just didn't see it or I don't know. A little frustrated with how the team's doing. So I'm waiting for a response from him. I'm sure he'll sign it though. He's a good dude.
You want to put the word out?
I got the word out. I got the word out. We'll see what happens. I mean, I don't want to, I don't want to bother him too much. But I'd love to have the cards. Not selling anything. They're just going in the bar. It's going to look great. So if he were to see this or hear this, would really appreciate it. And one of them is his first Bowman card when he was with the Pirates. It's kind of funny to look at, like how much different his delivery was.
We're talking about the same guy you murdered on national, in the wild card game, right? Like when you went out and just dominated the Pittsburgh Pirates and they talked shit to you and then they drilled you and you stole second base and then
well he had no
part
of that. He had no part of that. He's a much different guy now. But yes,
I'm just saying
that
we're
same
talking
guy.
about like he didn't text. Like if you're wondering, maybe he gets a text from you, and it's instant. Like I can't be talking to this guy right now on a skid.
No, I
'cause this guy,
doubt that. I doubt it. I think he
I doubt
respects
it
me
too.
and likes me. I think.
Yeah, of course. If he doesn't respect you, that's gonna be a problem for me.
I don't think there's any disrespect there. I respect him. I think it's mutual. Yeah, so we'll see. Did you see? I mean, they've been struggling, and when your team's struggling and people ask you for stuff, like you're a little less likely to respond to it quickly for whatever reason. It just is what it is. Even though the Yankees are still a really, really good team, and I told you the other day that there's really no reason to like worry, but the players get pissed. Things don't go their way. Struggling, dealing with umpires. It is what it is. The vibe changes a little bit, but they're still the Yankees. They're still a dominant team. So I need them to win a few games in a row, so maybe I get a text back. That's what needs to happen.
Okay, that's where we're at.
That's
well,
where
I'll
we're
tell you
at.
right now, the
Yeah,
Yankees,
win a
are
game from the
27 and
Yankees.
29 over their last 56. After
Yeah,
starting
that's
the
not where they
season
want to be.
46 and 14, I believe.
Yeah.
Joey Gallo for the Dodgers is Joey Gallo for the Dodgers is 6 for 23 with 3 jacks and a 696 slug.
Interesting comment about being in LA and with the Yankees it was like over there it was just the Aaron Judge show, and in LA they've got like 9 Aaron Judges or whatever. Interesting comment. It's always interesting when a player goes to another team and like says like maybe unsavory things about their former team, and I don't think that comment was that bad, but I mean I think the Yankees are much more than just the Aaron Judge show. He obviously he likes the Dodgers lineup, as he should. But you know what I'm saying? Like I think like Ian Kinsler said some things, when he was traded or ended up with a different team. It's like, just let it be. Like don't bash your former team or whatever in the media. Like if you want to say some stuff to the boys behind closed doors, that's fine, but it just looks a certain way when it gets into the media.
Yeah, because I think with Joey Gallo, it's a lot of pain with the way he was treated. There's reports or stories of him getting into the batter's box in the Bronx this year and just the whole stadium chanting, "Fuck you, Joey," and just like really unsavory stuff from the fans. So then when he gets to Los Angeles, that angst can, I would imagine in his position, that angst with the
it's an emotional thing.
Crossover.
Yeah, sure. It's an emotional thing, and I can understand that.
But you guys are tight, man. You baseball players really – you guys don't dislike each other nearly as much as maybe people think. It's not like, we hate those guys. They're coming to town.
No,
like,
I mean,
I don't
that's
really see
that's
that
more that's more from a fan's perspective. Most guys respect each other. There's guys that you're not going to like, or the Amir Garrett and Javi Baez. Those guys are never going to be friends. Let's face it. They're never going to be friendly. We had a bunch of tension with Chapman and Rizzo and some of our guys with the Cubs when he was with the Reds, and then Chapman comes to the Cubs, and it's like, all that shit's over because he's one of us now. But it's few and far between, like guys that can't stand each other or don't get along, because we typically respect guys that compete at the highest level, right? It's kind of we're all part of the same fraternity. But sometimes there's guys you just don't like, and that's life.
Yeah. Amen to that. Amen to that, brother. Well, I want to echo this again. Hopefully World Series doesn't go 7 games, but the playoff coverage that we have planned, just been putting some dates together. They released the schedule, and it looks robust. I love what they're doing with the ALDS, NLDS. And they've got some crazy thing in the ALCS where, like, they're just going to play games 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in consecutive nights.
That's amazing.
crazy.
Yeah,
So,
dominate
get
dominate
those
television.
Bullpens ready, man.
Yeah.
Get the bullpens ready. It's interesting how the strategy shapes up too, because that has to impact pitching decisions. And they did this for the ALDS, NLDS, or I should just say the division series. They set it up for there's a little extra rest, so teams that have the ace and the firepower can bring them back for game four.
Back.
Game 4 is now an option where before
it's a
that
big
would
advantage.
be considered risky. This is now where it's kind of baked in, where you can run a guy out game 1, game 4 for a division series, which is a huge advantage to obviously some big teams out there like the 2 teams in New York. So
yeah, well, baseball knows what they're doing. They want to see the horses out there as much as possible.
Yeah, good on them.
Yeah,
good on them. Anything else? I know this is a new frontier for you because kids are back in school, so you're changing.
No,
so it's just like a little life change.
A slight life change. I kind of miss them, but it gives us an opportunity. It gives Brittany and I the opportunity to really unpack and get things done without them here. Because when they're here, it's like we're hanging out. They want to ride bikes. They want to go for a hike. They want to go on the lake. It's like, all right, go learn reading, writing, arithmetic, history. And give your mom and dad some time to get this house unpacked, and we'll see you at 2:45.
Are you checking homework? Are you a dad who says bring me your homework?
I can do. I had to start like getting on the internet and Googling some stuff like last year for Cooper, like 4th grade home. Some of the stuff he's doing, some of the math, like you kind of forget it, and I'm having trouble with some of it. So it's getting to the point now where I'm like, if mom can't do it, I'm going to have to call like, Brittany's brother who's really, really good at math or somebody else. Cause I forgot all that stuff.
Not for nothing. I did win the Chicago Catholic League Championship 2001 speed geometry.
I was good at geometry. I did business calculus, which was really, really fun. It was a fun course. But then I lost it all. I don't remember any of it. Like if you put it in front of me now, I would have to go back and retake that entire course.
It's funny you mentioned that because I did enjoy business calculus. As weird as this is, I did enjoy that because it was the first time when you took all the math and then you applied it. You're like, oh, if you want to forecast, I'm like, oh, really?
Right.
Shit.
When you applied it, when it had a business application to it, like I think I would like anything if it was incorporated into some sort of business. But other than that, just calculus. No, it makes my brain hurt. It makes it hurt.
Yeah. Okay, this is
good things.
This is the end of the show, I think, but we have a huge week coming up next week. We have some ridiculous player interviews coming. I believe we're sitting down with a Cy Young front runner in the next couple of days too.
We are.
Obviously, go subscribe to the show. And what else? Anything else, big guy?
I don't think so, man. I got a bunch of shit to do around the house, and we are. Are we gonna say his name or no? Nah. We'll surprise.
Yeah, I like a surprise just because. I mean, I'll peel back the curtain. We're just trying to get the timing figured out too.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get that ironed out, but it's gonna be a good one. I'm a big fan of this guy, and I've got a few of his cards that I will show. I'll show the audience, and I'll show him once we start that interview.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
I gotta go work on my golf swing, man.
Go do that. I need to get on the golf course soon too. I'm terrible. I don't even know if I could break 90 right now. But I'll beat you. I'll beat you when we play. I promise you, I'll beat you. We'll put a wager on it.
Strokes, no strokes.
What's your handicap?
I mean, dude, don't do this.
Be honest. Right, what's your handicap?
Don't be public with me.
Because,
my index is a 14 point. My index is a 14. I think it's plain that's
14.
Plain that's bull. But listen, dude, I don't.
I'll give you a handful of strokes then.
No, I don't play. By the time we play, next time we play, I should say, I will not want strokes. But we keep in mind, we'll tease something. We're supposed to play the 4-play guys in a scramble.
Okay.
So that's like you, me, and I think I want Rizzo there. But I don't know if he's any good. You want
Rizzo there? He's a pretty good golfer. He loses focus after 9 holes, though. So he can shoot a 40, 42, let's say, and then he'll shoot a 50.
What about a scramble? Is he good for that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he can hit the ball far. Like I said, he's kind of spacey in between shots. But he's fun to golf with.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
All right.
Good show. And guys, if you're listening, if you're watching, remember to like and subscribe. Need every one of you with us. Need ya.
Amen, brother. We'll talk soon.
Good show, man.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.